we have power in our experience. We have the power, at the very least, of perspective of the experience. Today's video is for you if you've ever asked this question: why is nothing working to relieve my painful, tense body? I've asked this question and I've received this question literally hundreds of times now. So we're going to dive into it and have a look at how we can start to solve this problem. So as we get into that, just have a reflection just to see if this is your situation and if any of these situations resonate for you. So you experience joint pain, restrictions in your breathing, you feel afraid of your body, it's hard to sit, hard to rest, hard to lay down, your body is overwhelming, you feel scared, fatigued, your mind is overactive, you are sitting a lot for work and in life, you've got muscle stiffness and tension, your body is out of alignment all the time. If any one of those things are true for you, or all of those things are true for you, often they all get connected together. That's why it can be so challenging. Then we're going to keep going a little further. It's common in this situation that you might feel like just nothing works. And it's like, I've done everything. I've done physical therapy, the exercises aren't effective, they're boring, they don't even carry over into the actual movement that I do in life, like doing with a little rubber band, these little movements. And then I go to move in life and nothing really changes, or I don't do it enough, or, because it's just not really engaging. You go to the chiro, you get adjustments, they don't hold, feels better for a little bit, and then it just goes back. You've tried fitness and you often feel worse after exercise and your body keeps getting inflamed. You've tried even somatics and you might become more aware of what's happening in your body, but nothing really changes. You've tried things like Feldenkrais, where you did a lot of floor-based movements, but then when you stood up, your body still feels collapsed. Myofascial release and massage, and then you might release different tension patterns and holding patterns, but then when you release, it's like you've got no structural support to then hold those new positions, and then you feel unstable. Or even like trauma release exercises, and then you just feel the trauma, you get overwhelmed. And at the end of all of this, if you've tried any of them or all of them, you essentially feel very mentally affected. And it puts you in this situation where it's like, well, I've tried all of these things. I still feel the same or worse. I've been there and it sucks. This is not the end of the road for you, though. And that's what we're going to go into. There's three common problems that I've noticed in this. And if we can address each of these problems, there are some solutions for the way that we can look at this and get you on the other side, starting to move more freely again and feeling more stable and connected to the body that you live in. So let's begin.
Yeah, and it's really not a pleasant place to be if you are in this situation right now. The thing is, everything you did until right now, it's just a tool. So it doesn't matter if it's physical therapy or Feldenkrais or trauma release or myofascial things. It's just a tool. And a tool is dependent on how it's used. And when you start to look at things like this, oh, I am the user of this tool, then you just have to dig a bit deeper and look at how you're using the tool. And the first problem often happens when we feel stuck in the body in pain and in all that things, that we are really trying so hard to fix the body. So we're really focusing on the thing which is broken and we are not seeing the whole picture. And in that moment, we are really putting all our energy into this body part, into this problem, and not realizing this problem just gets fertilized because we are putting in all the energy we have into this one thing. And this is how human beings work. This is how our consciousness work. We're putting all in the energy and this gets bigger. So it's really to become self-aware and to really observe yourself if you're too focused on the problem and at the same time too attached to the outcome, like, oh, just when this pain is not there anymore, everything will be better. My life would be better. Every moment would be better. And seeing this is not the truth. Life is happening in every moment, and just connecting with the body as a whole and appreciate what you have and you're still alive can be really an important first step. Otherwise, you will go in circles on and on.
Yeah. Well, let's unpack that a little bit. It's common, like when with all the things we were talking about before, if your past has given you continual repeated experiences, that's often all you know. It's like if you have felt internal chaos from your childhood into adulthood and you don't have any other things to connect to, then that's often the only thing that you know. And often we can then just stabilize that reality. And that feels normal, even though we know it's not what we want to feel, but we don't know what we want to feel feels like. It's like looking for a radio station that you just can't dial it in. So it's like, well, I want to listen to something. I may as well keep dialing into the station that I know. And so we keep singing up the problem, and your brain literally just gets wired into the problem. It's looking for the problem. You do something and it may be good for you, but you may need longer for it to take effect. But then let's say you do exercise and then you get sore, and then you associate that soreness with all the pain that you've gone through. And then it's like, no, can't do exercise. Exercise is bad equals pain and all these things. So it's then you try something else. Of course, everything that you do change is generally uncomfortable, and it's like if you want to get stronger, you're going to feel weakest during that time. If you want to become more flexible, you're going to feel tightest during that time because you're going to be leaning into and feeling all the areas that you're tight. So then if your brain is continuing to then go, I feel tightness, I feel weak, I feel pain, that's what I am, and then I continue to live through that, it's like driving a car with the handbrake on and wondering why you're not going anywhere. So that's where, as you're saying, Marcus, we need to interrupt that pattern, let go of the attachment to that outcome being here yesterday, because it's so much pressure that we place upon ourselves to feel a certain thing, and start to come back to, okay, in my body now, what do I actually appreciate that I have right now? What do I like connecting with? There's always somewhere. And it may be the smallest thing that you just haven't even really thought about. But what happens when we start to do that is we start to build new reference points of this is okay. Okay, I can connect with that. And over time, your brain starts to change of the things that you look for. We've got this thing called our reticular activation system, and it basically focuses on whatever we focus on. It will show us more of that thing. So if we start to look for things that we appreciate, first, one of the big things for me when I was going through scoliosis and all the pains that were associated with that was it actually drew me into a deeper appreciation for having a body. It took me a while to get to that point. Initially, I was like, my body has failed me. I hate it. Why am I so restricted? But then once I started to actually focus on, whoa, this is a wonderful opportunity, like that I have this body. What can I do with it? And naturally bump up against all of the things that I couldn't do, but continuing to shift that question, but what can I do? And then building on top of that. That's a very different place, and it takes the pressure. It brings in a more innocent level of curiosity. It's moving beyond the thought that we know everything, particularly when you've tried a lot of things. You think that you know everything. You think that you know the outcome before it's even happened. And this is to start to move into an innocent level of inquiry as to, well, what is here and what can I do now?
Yeah, and you've been there already when you were a little baby and a kid, and you started and you learned to roll, crawl, walk. It was exactly in a way the same situation. You were
Yeah.
just observing that everyone is walking around, and then, oh, how are they doing this? and you just started to explore
Yeah.
and not suffering. You just did it, and then it started working out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good example. Like, as a child, we would see in our environment adults doing things, but there's not that attachment of, well, why can't I walk today like mum and dad can?
No.
We're not at that stage of like, even, we're really just at that point developing an attachment to our environment and safety, but
Yeah.
not all of these things and all of these outcomes. And that is a really useful lens to come back and look at, okay, if I was a child again with fresh eyes, I didn't know what the outcome was. How might I look at this experience? How might I look at this body now through those eyes? And of
Yeah.
course, you will get those adult thoughts and doubts and all of that sort of stuff. And that's okay. What we're looking to do is just continuing to refocus on what we can do rather than what we don't have, what we need to
Yeah.
fix. Yeah.
Yeah. And in a way, it's just often a reflection according to how life is projected in our today's societies. When you look at social media, it's just all about, yeah, what I don't have, and all the marketing things are just projected onto the things. And
Yeah.
this is how our brain is also trained in daily life.
Yeah. Which brings us to the next problem that I see.
Yeah, this is maybe a bit a tricky one to comprehend in the beginning, to really dig deeper and seeing that there is a benefit in being stuck in this place. So just to realize, okay, my body, my nervous system has connected some things, some positive things in staying safe, in being okay with the circumstances on a deeper level, that there is nothing really open for change. It's just like, maybe it's shit, but it's the shit,
Mhm.
and this is feeling more safe and more familiar than just going through this and seeing, okay, what's out there, what's underneath, what is still possible for me. And often when I when I use these questions in some in my one-on-one mentorings, the first response is often just blocking. Oh no, there is no benefit for me. This is not making any sense.
Yeah.
So this is just a question to allow to sink in, and then really start reflect and observe, and maybe also going through the past in your childhood, or when you were a teenager or whatever, to see, okay, when I felt these emotions, when I was in this space, what was I expecting, what I did get back in this space. This is where the things are stuck and still holding you back in
Mm.
just moving through.
Yeah. It is a hard one to comprehend because consciously, when we want to change and we have that outcome in mind of what that is going to be like, there is an instant reaction to this that, well, of course, I want to change. Like,
Yeah,
there is no benefit whatsoever to this. Underneath that, though, is essentially a part of us that feels victim to the experience, that it is very difficult to admit to ourselves, and I'll speak for myself, that we have power in our experience. We have the power, at the very least, of perspective of the experience. And I see this a lot when people come to work with me who have got either one or multiple diagnoses, and they feel proud about the diagnosis because it gives some degree of certainty of, I know what's happening
yeah,
and I don't have to do anything else now because I have this. So it's like the acceptance of this static thing that someone else defined. And I'm not saying that diagnoses are bad, they're helpful. Yet, but if that's where it stops, if that's where you go, okay, well, I have this thing, and it could be even just at a low level, like I've got a tight body. So if we don't uncover that hidden benefit of why we are stuck, like a common thing is if I change, then that's more scary than what I know. If I were to, for example, let's say we were part of a family system that actually, I'm going to go into it like a cultural perspective. So in Australia, it's a very deep part of our culture that we have what I would call tall poppy syndrome. And it makes sense because a lot of Australia was founded on like convict mentality. So, like, let's say people in power brought convicts from jail over to be the labor force to build the country.
Yeah.
So, in that situation, you have this cultural narrative that's like, get ahead. It's sort of like we really root for the little guy to strive and achieve, but don't get too ahead because then you'll become the man that suppressed us.
Yeah.
So let's say we had that, and then it's like, oh, I start to really excel, but that means that I will be rejected by my peers, my family, my culture, all of these things. So there's a hidden benefit to me staying here. But inside, my soul knows this is who I am. And it's not to put anyone down, but it's just to really align with the truth of us. And we're not defined by all of these cultural norms and narratives that are essentially forms of control. So, a lot of the time, as we step into our own self authoring, our own sovereignty, we're going to move away from social norms. Like this happened to me a lot when I started moving in public, in parks and all of that sort of stuff. Instantly, I felt really weird because no one else is doing that here. It's more common in places like Hong Kong and China and that sort of thing. But there wasn't really a lot of social structure for me to do that. So it was quite uncomfortable, much more comfortable for me to not exercise in public. So had I stayed in that familiar, comfortable place, I wouldn't be moving my body half as much because now, like, to be honest, I don't care what anyone thinks of me in that regard. And so I just move. I'm the weird guy. It's actually, I'm happy about that. And so
Yeah.
it's given all this freedom and space. And so these are just some smaller examples of how like there can be a hidden benefit for like that one little thing has opened up so much more possibility of movement. Now I can be anywhere. I can be in an airport, I can be in a park, I can be wherever. And just it could be as simple as like initially I was like afraid to just squat down because I had associated everyone would think, oh, I'm gonna be like doing a poo or something. Like all of these associations there and they can really keep us stuck and small. So once I started to see that benefit of staying stuck or staying in that position, seeing is really the first step of change. I could look at it and go, oh, okay, well, what I really want is to feel more free moving my body. And to do that, I would like to have the freedom to move when I want, how I want. And then I see, okay, I'm going to be pushing against what other people think is normal. Ah, okay. So is that right for me? No, it's not. And then you can move past it. And so that's just a simple example. So one of the
Mm.
main things is like when we feel stuck in any experience, particularly with the body, is the feelings from the past are often stronger than the feelings even in the present.
Yes.
And so then when we want to change, we need to amplify those present feelings and really hone in. Like so it might be like, what is an area of your body that you just love? And even if it's just like, I love my little finger because it's just so cute, or whatever it is. I love this part of my chin. Really honing in to those things, right? Because if you have all these anchor points of all the pain and all the discomfort and all that sort of stuff, you're going to need to have some new anchor points that you can start to expand upon. And it brings us back to like the simple things, like the simple feeling of my fingers touching one another, that simple feeling of like the breath moving in and out of my nose. Whatever it is, starting there to start to build a new present, changing your focus in the present, and then where that small thing starts, like a seed, we keep watering it and that can grow.
Yeah, and letting go of the often limiting belief that this is all happening subconscious and you have no power over it.
Yes.
You can always connect with the little things just Benny shared with you. Just connect with the touch or with the breath or with the body part you feel really happy about, and then the subconscious will not longer run the show. So you have the power in every moment of your life. You
Yeah.
just have to become aware of and make a choice.
Yeah. So the next core problem is not feeling safe feeling the body, which is kind of, we've been talking about this in different ways, but basically it's like every sensation that you feel, you then start to catastrophize those sensations and then it builds this loop and spiral of pain. It's like, oh, this is, like the other day, I was doing some breathing practices and I started to feel a pain in my chest around my heart. Now, that could very easily trigger me into, oh, what's wrong with my heart? I don't normally feel that. Am I going to have a heart attack? What's wrong? All of these things. I didn't ignore it at the time because it's a signal, right? It's there. But I also didn't like just hone and zoom in on it. I'm like, okay, I noticed that's there. And then I'm tracking, okay, well, what are the activities that I've done in the past 24 hours? I instantly found a cause and effect in that 24-hour period that would link to that experience of I was doing some crawling movements and I was really focusing on like opening my ribs in a different position. It just so happens that I was experiencing the effect of that as I was doing the breathing practice. But in my mind, it would be really easy to go, oh, I'm doing this breathing practice. And then I felt this is bad. I'm going to give myself a heart attack and da da da, don't do this. Right. So having that ability to be able to see the cause and effect of our actions over an extended period could be a day, it could be a week, it could be a month or many years. If we can start to track back and then look at, well, you know what? I haven't really moved my body for 10 years. Of course, it's going to be a bit uncomfortable, you know? So being able to see that rather than then reacting to everything and then making up a story basically based on all of your painful experiences is going to help you start to see, oh, okay, I see how these things could be linked. And then now I see the power, how I can do something different.
Yeah, and this will happen maybe more often when you really start connecting with the body on a deeper level, that things will show up from the past because it's just stored in the body's memory. We can talk about the cell memory, and also it's stored in the nervous system. When we start really connecting, going into this era, into these eras where the body is stuck, then those things will get an opportunity to move, and suddenly you will have maybe some memories like, oh, this happened then and this happened then, and yeah, for me yesterday this was again some aha moments for my right ankle and for my lower back, where I instantaneously was seeing the scenario when this happened the first time, and then also seeing all those things we discussed before, all those self judgments and all these emotional things I put upon myself in this situation, and all this together was there holding my ankle and limiting some range of motion, and just seeing this and not feeling unsafe with all those sensations, because the sensations were not very pleasant going into my ankle into these steep levels,
Mm,
but just seeing the cause and then seeing the effect, what happened, and now realizing, oh, now it starts to move, now things start to release, can be a very useful skill you can develop. This is what humans can do.
yeah.
and
Yeah.
and create this feeling of safety and knowing, oh yeah, this has to happen if I want to feel more free and moving more freely with my body.
Yeah, yeah, it's like what we were saying before. If we need to strengthen an area or the body in general, like we're going to likely experience some degree of muscle soreness as we go through that. And
Yeah.
if we can do those activities, the same with more active stretching, really any new movement done to some degree of intensity can give that effect. It doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to for it to be effective, but it can happen as you're learning how the amount of volume that your body can take and its capacity and all of that sort of thing. But if you can then start to see that and go, oh, okay, well, this is just a simple effect of the action that I consciously chose.
Yeah.
That's very empowering rather than, oh, my body's effed up and it's broken, because like that's the narrative that may be there. And then we just keep reaffirming it. And then that then keeps us back in problem number two, where we were saying before of like staying safe, one of
Yeah.
the hidden benefits. So you see how these two things can be contradictory of like, I want to feel safe in my body, but I'm afraid of the change. And so by zooming out and seeing the conscious effects of our choices, or seeing the effects of our conscious choices, then we can start to be empowered in the choices that we make and see them through long term and accept that it's not always going to be pleasant. And within that, there is a lot of safety that forms in that, oh, I am in control. Because that's one of the big things that I see all the time is like, I fear that which I do not have power over.
Yeah.
And you do have ultimate power over yourself. You do have ultimate power over your perspective and the way you interpret all of the signals of your body. It doesn't mean that you become ignorant of them. You actually become very intelligent around the ways that you can feel and sense into an understanding of each signal, and not then be pulled into a spiral of fear. So that's kind of like the core mechanism of how we essentially build safety. And some of the things that we can do is, like when we're working with the body, really essentially like the core of it is connection,
Yeah.
like, and that could be, oh, I don't feel connected to my legs. My back hurts, but I don't feel connected to my legs. So rather than focusing on stretching my back and all of that sort of thing, I can first start to focus on, what do I feel disconnected from? What do I feel separated from? That could be a state of emotion. For example, like an anxiety. Often it intensifies when we feel separate from it. It's like I feel disconnected, I feel out of control in this state of emotion. So actually, we regain power through connecting with that experience. It doesn't stop there, though. Often then it's really useful for us to work on things like improving our breath capacity. So then, as we keep connecting with the body, there is more life force moving through it. Because if your life force is depleted, and then you keep focusing on connecting with your body, that can also then reaffirm of, see, I told you it sucked in there because I'm always fatigued and all, but I'm not actually doing anything to start to bring up my energy levels to support the environment to be more pleasant.
Yeah. And also seeing emotional stuffs and emotional things going on as a great opportunity to increase your skills for experiencing emotions and allow emotions to regulate.
Yeah.
Because when we become more aware of our emotions and we really start also connect with those things like emotions, they often feel like things because we don't want to have them. Uh, Energies, you will get back some energy, even though it feels like a negative emotion. As soon as you start connecting with it, your energy level will increase
Mm.
because you stop using energy to push it away. You're inviting the energy which is already triggered in the body, and now things can move through and amplify. This
Yes.
can also be a really little thing to increase life force. Just become aware of emotions and start working with the emotions because they are already there.
Yeah.
So there's nothing, or there is no really benefit in pushing them away, talking them in a way, talk yourself out of it. This is often what happens with positive thinking. Like, oh, I feel this negative emotions, and we put positive thoughts over it. And then at that moment, we block the energy.
Mm.
You energy to block energy, and this can go like this way. So we are spiraling down just because of this little thing of feeling uncomfortable with emotions.
Yeah, yeah, it's some really good points. And particularly, I find it really useful to look at everything that we experience is a force of love. It is a force of creation. Everything in our world is a byproduct of a thought. Tables, the chairs, the the world as we know it is a product of some form of consciousness. And underneath that is actually like a force of creation, not destruction.
Yeah.
So if we can look at things of everything is continually being created on repeat, that which is focused upon, well, then what do you want to focus on in that case then? So let's say we have these states of emotion that are not safe because of whatever associations that we have made. For me, anger was not safe. So I tried to put a positive emotion over the top, like you were saying, of calmness.
Yes.
And that just burned up a buttload of energy. The anger was still there. So underneath it though was actually a force of love that I something wasn't okay for me. Like my boundaries were being violated. I was saying yes when I meant no. And I feared that I would be rejected if I did say no. You know, all of these very deep levels of conditioning that I learned to be safe in. So feeling that, it didn't necessarily feel comfortable because I had all of those links. But underneath it was a little kid, a person, a man, a human, you know, just really like wanting to connect. And so once I was able to start to see that, so you see on the surface, there's all of this noise, like anger and all the associations I had of it. And then it would actually come back around because I invested so much energy in blocking it that it would then burst out, right? And basically, you know, that was the model that I learned from my father. And I see now underneath it was still someone desperately trying to be heard. And so underneath that is compassion for that. And now if anger comes up, it comes up. It can be expressed in a way that is actually helpful for me. So
Yeah, it's very powerful for creation.
yeah, yeah.
If you
So
if you put another word around it, aggression, not anger, it's just like getting something done. Huh?
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Like and seeing that, you know, like particularly like as being a man and sometimes aggression is necessary. You know, if
Yeah.
someone was to physically try to attack me or someone I love, I'm going to use that aggression if necessary.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to feel shame or guilt about it because that, you know, like I can then step into a higher value to protect and care and love in that situation. But I tell you what, 10 years ago, I would have not, I would have run away from that. And maybe there is a time to run. Maybe that is the
Yeah.
wiser decision. But you know what I mean? It starts to give us choice. And so we don't have to create all of these locked doors within us where we run from these things just because they're a bit uncomfortable. We can lean into these states and actually expand our capacity for a richer experience of our emotional states, our physical sensations. And so, this is how we can start to rebuild safety at all levels in being who we are, in feeling how we feel, and being able to regulate in all of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If
So,
Benny and I were able to go through, then you will also be able to. And all the people we work with, they can comprehend it after some weeks or several months to really get this level of safety back. It's just a matter of how you approach it and having this self compassion that yeah, it's not going like this because you have lived the other reality for so many years, but it happens. Yeah, this chart is showing this exactly.
yeah, so it's a perfect segue into this part. You know, like as we're going through it, it's like anything in life, we're going to face challenges. It's a certainty. It's part of being human, I believe. It's part of our evolutionary path and growth. The challenge is when we just sort of go through life and life beats you down. Having a body beats you down. All of the sensations and experiences, all of the failures beat you down, and you stop getting back up, you know? And so it's kind of like this first chart here of, oh, well, like I just give up on life. You sort of learn to just survive instead of being able to thrive in the face of challenge. Of like,
Yeah.
okay, I take on this challenge. This is what is here now. Okay, how can I build my capacity to meet this and become bigger than this? Become bigger than this pain, bigger than this sensation. That's where we can get to a point where it's like pain is just a signal, tension is just a signal. We can come back to, oh, we then start to move on this very different path of expansion at the level of our consciousness. Because sort of like in the second chart, like you have these big kind of quantum realizations the more you start to step into self-responsibility, that you do have power to affect things, particularly your body, and you go, "Ha!" And then you get hit with some sort of humbling, "I got it. Well, there's more to uncover." Ha! And but there is a general upward trajectory, in the uplifting of our spirits, I find.
Yeah.
And of course, we do go through, our body changes as we get older and all of that sort of thing. And this is not about like trying to sort of become some bionic thing that is in defiance of the laws of nature. But it's starting to see that we can thrive in the face of challenge. And if you have been experiencing a lot of challenge inside your body for a long time, my words of encouragement are, this is not a life sentence. If nothing else shifts but your perspective of this and coming back to the appreciation that you are alive, you're already starting to move up the ladder then.
Yeah.
Asking that question, what can I do now? And how have I learned how to do all things up until this point? Can I go through a process where I start to actually rebuild my consciousness that is in alignment with who I know myself to be deep down inside? Can I move from that place? And what is the effect of that on my world? What I get to give and bring, whether it's to be the best friend that I can be, the best partner that I can be, mother, father, lover, brother, sister. I really do believe that it is each of our responsibility to create our world within and share that world around us. And we need that more and more these days.
And even though when your body starts to heal, like in the right chart, yeah, there will be moments like, oh yeah, now I feel much more flexible, and then the body, just from a physical perspective, needs to adapt and to really stabilize those ranges. So range of motion will decrease again, and it will go up and decrease and go up. But overall, when you look back 1 or 2 or 3 years, you will see that your flexibility in general is more than your maybe best range of motion 2 years ago. So it's just this continuous expanding of capacity. And
Mm,
and your energy levels, like on a daily basis, maybe are now the top days 5 years ago, and this is now your daily life. And so you can also track back your progress over longer periods and see, oh yeah, it's always going up, and
mm.
I'm always doing the things my body needs to grow and feel more comfortable and more energized.
Yeah. And to do all that, we need to be on the journey,
Yeah.
and fall in love with the process. I know it sounds so cliched these days, but it's really true.
Yeah,
Like
it is.
to fall in love with the process of connecting with your body and whatever however it is that you choose to use it while connecting with it, falling in love with that, then you've already won.
Yeah.
Like nothing can stop you at that point. And you let go of the outcome. And in my experience, you get way further than what you thought that you ever could. You actually start to exceed beyond your wildest imagination of what you think is possible, because like there was a time when I didn't even think that standing up straight would be possible again. And I'm so grateful that I just kept on that journey. Like I kept showing up, being interested in this next breath, being interested in what I could do, how I could move, being interested in the sensations and what they were connected to. And now it's like this wonderful Rolodex that I can look through, and it's not so distorted where, well, that equals that and that equals that. It's like, oh no, that could equal that, could equal that, could equal that. There's all of these possibilities that I see, and here I am in the middle of it. And you can get to a point of acceptance of all things that are happening, and then you get a choice. Where to next?
Yeah. And you know exactly what to choose. It's just clear in those moments.
Yeah. So I hope that that is helpful. I really do feel for those in pain. That's why we do these videos. And I feel from my own experience, I feel from the thousands of people that I've worked with over many years. And I suppose my hope is that we can all rise together, see our inherent strength of our body, of being human, see the incredible, miraculous healing abilities that we have, and realize that we're pretty super.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, thanks for watching.
Bye bye.